Are you thinking about making a move to Surrey, BC? Or maybe you're already planning your move and you just want to be fully prepared before you jump right in. Well, you're in the right place because today I'm going to share with you the top 5 things that I wish I knew before moving to Surrey. Now, I've been living here for a number of years, and while I've come to love this city, there were definitely a few surprises along the way. Some were nice and, well, some not so much. But knowing these 5 things ahead of time could make your transition much smoother, saving you time, money, and, well, maybe even a little stress. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around until the end of this video because the last thing that I'm going to talk about is something that most people don't realize until it's too late. And it could completely change your experience living here. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's get the big one out of the way, and that is the weather. Now, if you're coming from somewhere like Alberta or maybe Ontario, you're probably thinking, great, I'm moving to the land of the rain. And yeah, Surrey does get a lot of rain. In fact, it rains about 160 days a year here, which is a little less than Vancouver, but it's still pretty frequent. Now, what I didn't realize, though, is that people tend to exaggerate just how bad the weather is here in Surrey. Yeah, sure, the winter months, they can feel long with all of the gray skies and the drizzle, but it's not the endless monsoon that people make it out to be. Plus, there is a silver lining, and that is no snow. Well, almost no snow. Surrey rarely gets snow in the winter, and when it does, it usually doesn't stick around very long. Now, the downside is that winters can feel damp and they can feel cold, even though the temperatures aren't exactly extreme. We're talking about an average of about 6 degrees Celsius in December. So it's not freezing, but it is wet and it is chilly, which can make it feel colder than it actually is. On the flip side, when the weather is good, it is really good here. The summers, they're typically a little bit shorter. They're short and sweet, with temperatures climbing around to the mid-20s on average, or sometimes even higher. Some days, it's going to hit around 30 degrees Celsius or more, which is, of course, a very pleasant surprise for people who are here coming from colder provinces. And because we're on the coast, we get these beautiful sunny days that are perfect for outdoor activities for, things like hiking, biking, or even just hitting the beach. So you definitely want to make sure that you enjoy those sunny months because, well, they don't last all that long. So what's the takeaway here? Well, you want to make sure you get yourself some good rain gear and that you're ready for the gray winters and all of the rain that we do get. When I first moved here, that was one of the best investments that I made was full rain gear because, well, I have a dog and I'm walking that dog at least once, if not twice a day. And in the winter, you want to stay dry and you don't really want to be carrying around an umbrella. In fact, the sign of a true BCer is they don't carry an umbrella. They wear rainwear with a hood. But if you can get past all of that, you can also look forward to surprisingly warm and beautiful summers. Surrey's weather is definitely milder compared to the rest of Canada. And for many, that's a huge selling point. All right, so let's talk a little bit about getting around. Whether you're driving or taking public transit, this is something that can make or break your daily routine. So if you drive, you're in luck because Surrey is one of the easiest places to navigate in Metro Vancouver. The city, they use a grid system, which means that the streets, they run from north to south and the avenues run east to west. So once you understand that streets are numbered and increase as you move east, while avenues increase as you move north, it's pretty straightforward. And when you compare that to other cities with a lot of winding and confusing streets, it's like a breath of fresh air, and it's a lot easier to find your way around without constantly relying on your GPS. And for those of you who are commuting to Vancouver or some of the other cities surrounding Surrey, Surrey is well connected by several major highways, such as Highway 1, which is going to get you into Vancouver and out east to places like Langley or Abbotsford. And you've also got other options like Highway 99 and Fraser Highway. So you're never really stuck with just one route. And if you prefer public transit, Surrey has an extensive bus system and the SkyTrain. The SkyTrain, it connects from Surrey to downtown Vancouver, which is fantastic for those who commute regularly. However, and here's something I wish I'd known earlier before I moved here, and that is the SkyTrain doesn't cover the entire city. So if you live in areas like South Surrey or Cloverdale, you're going to be relying more on buses, which take you a little bit longer depending on where you're headed. Now, I should say that the SkyTrain extension, which is currently in the works, will eventually make commuting much easier, especially for those living further out towards Langley. But for now, just know that public transit in Surrey can be a little bit patchy depending on your specific location. But overall, Surrey is a pretty well-connected city. And once you get familiar with that grid system, driving here is an absolute breeze. Plus, the roads are also wider than they are in places like Vancouver, which makes the whole driving experience a little more comfortable. Okay, moving on to point number 3. And this is something that a lot of people aren't going to tell you when you're thinking about moving to Surrey. And that is, there is a bit of a stigma attached to this city. For years, Surrey has had a reputation of sorts for being a bit of a rough area. And if you do talk to people who are from outside the area, they're probably going to bring that up. But the truth is, the vast majority of people who are criticizing Surrey, they haven't actually spent much time here. You know, maybe they've driven through or visited 1 or 2 neighborhoods, but that's about it. Surrey is absolutely huge, both in population and in land size. It is the 3rd largest city in BC. And like any other city, there's going to be some good areas and, well, some not so good areas. You know, sure, some neighborhoods, they might, not be for everyone. And yes, there are some areas where crime is a little bit higher. But overall, the bad reputation that Surrey has is mostly completely overblown. You know, I've lived here for over 20 years now, and I can literally count on one hand the number of times that I've felt even slightly unsafe. You know, the fact is that Surrey is made up of some really beautiful, family-friendly neighborhoods with parks, schools, and amenities that make it an ideal place for a lot of people to live. There's areas like South Surrey, Fleetwood, and Clayton Heights that are especially popular for families because they offer this great balance of affordability, safety, and convenience. So whatever you do, don't let that stigma scare you off. The truth is, Surrey's a diverse, vibrant city, and it's got a lot to offer. And if you take the time to explore the different neighborhoods, you're going to find a spot that suits your lifestyle perfectly. Now, one of the biggest things that I didn't fully appreciate until I moved to Surrey is just how multicultural this city is. So if you're coming from a smaller town or a less diverse area, this might be a bit of an adjustment for you, but in the best possible way. Surrey is actually home to a wide variety of cultures. And this diversity is one of the things that makes Surrey so unique. You've got this large South Asian, Chinese, and Filipino communities, among others. And this cultural blend brings this the vibrancy that we have in this city, which begs the question, what does all this mean to you? Well, for starters, it's going to mean incredible food. So you're going to find everything from Indian cuisine to Chinese, Filipino, Mediterranean, and so much more. And it's all within a short drive. Now, it's also going to mean there are tons of cultural festivals and events that are happening throughout the year. So whether you're attending Diwali or one of the city's other many celebrations, there's always something interesting happening in Surrey. Living in such a multicultural environment, it also means that Surrey is an incredibly welcoming place for newcomers. So no matter where you're from, you're likely to find a community here that is going to share your background and your interests, which is going to make it much easier for you to settle in and feel exactly like you are at home. All right, so lastly, let's talk about something that often gets overlooked and sort of goes under the radar, and that is floodplains. This is something that I really wish I had heard about and known about before moving to Surrey, because it's not something that a lot of people talk about very much, but it is very important. You need to understand that Surrey has several areas that are located on floodplains, particularly near the coast and the agricultural zones. about 20% of Surrey is actually in a floodplain area, which mostly affects the farmland, but some residential areas also can be impacted as well. So this doesn't mean that you should avoid these areas altogether, by the way, but it does mean that you should do your research, especially if you're buying a home. You really want to make sure that you understand the risks and check out if your home is in a floodplain area or a flood-prone area before buying. As for safety, like I mentioned earlier, most of Surrey I would consider safe. You know, there are, of course, some areas or neighborhoods that tend to have a little higher crime rates than others, but they are fairly contained. And it's pretty easy to avoid those areas if you want to. And if you are moving here with a family, Surrey has plenty of quiet suburban neighborhoods that are perfect for raising kids. So there you have it. Those are the 5 main things that I wish I knew before moving to Surrey, BC. But here's the thing, there is one more factor that could really influence whether or not Surrey is the right place for you. And it has to do with the hidden costs of living in this city. And so in my next video, I'm going to be breaking down what those costs are, how to budget for them, and what you need to know before making your move. So you're not going to want to miss that video. Again, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you on the next one.